Hi there, and welcome to Bands and the Humans podcast. I am your host, Bands, and you are the humans. And this is episode 5 of Free Rants. And for today, I just thought we should try something different. And as you guys can see, I have a whole bunch of books here with me. I just thought maybe I'd run you guys through some of the books that have, impacted my life in a way. And these are either books that I've read or I am planning to read. So let's get started, and we are going to book number 1. Okay, that's not what we're gonna do. We're not doing that. We're just gonna start. This here is The Whole Heart of Yoga, and started reading this book this year actually. I'm not done with it the whole way through. As you can see, it's like quite a dense book, not in terms of the size, but like the information in there, and it requires you to, give it a bit of time and yourself a bit of time to process it as well. So it's, if you are planning on, engaging in yoga, like we did with the previous episode of the podcast, I think it was episode 5. Yeah, episode 5 with Natasha. And this book is quite informative, and, it speaks a lot to the whole depth of yoga. It's like the book says, the whole heart of yoga. But it doesn't only take you through the asanas, which are the poses. It takes you through a whole, the whole range of what the spectrum of yoga contains. So if you are interested, who's the author? Venerable John Bright-Fey. Yeah, I don't know who that is, but according to the author, he had to kind of sit down and use his memory in order to be able to write this book, because he obtained the knowledge through oral method. There's like sitting down with people who are informed and who know about yoga, and he had to learn the techniques and learn what yoga was about through sitting down and listening. He couldn't take any notes or anything like that, which made it even more dope. But also in a way, you kind of think, it's like, how accurate is this guy's memory? So yeah, but I'm enjoying it so far. Probably like probably just close to halfway through, and yeah, it's quite dense. So it is quite dense. So, but it's quite good. And second book, which book do we go with? Okay, Steve Biko, I Write What I Like. This is a book I was introduced to in high school, and I won't say I was much of a reader back then. I didn't really enjoy reading primary and high school. I never liked reading until I got interested in the history as a subject in high school. But prior to that, no, I used to hate reading, and now you like can't contain me with like the type of books and type of information and knowledge that I obtain. Like, it's, you'd think I was a different person. But yeah, Steve Biko is truly one of the people that influenced the way I think, the way that I am. And this book here is just somewhat of a memoir. In the first bit of it, they have a biographical summary of who Steve Biko was and how he moved and organized himself and his movement, which is the Black Consciousness movement. And I don't know if we could say that the book is, it is still very relevant today, obviously. But I mean, in terms of reinventing or re-innovating the whole movement, it's still essential to know where it started, and this is it here, Steve Biko. This one here, The Element, I started reading it, but I haven't really finished it. It was written by Ken Robinson, sorry, and it speaks to how we can harness creativity as human beings. And he goes through like a plethora of celebrities and people who have achieved or who operate on their talent at the highest level. And he takes you through how they might have gotten to that point, and just to kind of give inspiration and breathe life into the spirit of creativity and talent. And like here at the back, I like what he wrote. Says the world is changing faster than ever in our history. We need to evolve a new appreciation of the importance of nurturing human talent, along with an understanding of how talent expresses itself differently in every individual. We need to create an environment in our schools, in our workplaces, and in our public offices where every person is inspired to grow creatively. And that is something I can go with, because creativity is something that is somewhat suppressed in our society, because it's not something that's considered like productive in a way or valuable. Like the society values people who would rather be machine or robot like. I guess that's just how things are, but creativity is still very important. If you're not expressing yourself creatively in any way, form or shape, using your talent, then you're not really doing a good job of releasing that energy. Then this one here is one that is on spirituality. It's called The Science of Self-Realization, and it was written by multiple authors who would listen to I don't know this guy's name. I can't pronounce this guy's name. But the book is called Science of Self. I won't even try to pronounce that name. But it speaks a lot on the Hindu religion, Hindu philosophy, and Eastern philosophy as well, according to how this man here interpreted it. And I really enjoyed this book here. It broadened my mind. It broadened my perspective on a lot of subjects and topics that I wasn't really clued up on, because going to a different religion as a kid. I found this book in my aunt's bookshelf. I stole it, actually. Hopefully she doesn't watch this and get mad at me. But I stole this book a while ago. I think I was 15, 16. Yeah. But I didn't read it until later on in my life. But it's kind of a taboo thing to go to another religion to learn about their stuff when we grew up as Christians at home. So it felt like I was breaking some form of rule or whatever, but I wasn't. And then we have Richard Branson here, and he's the founder of Virgin, Virgin Active, Virgin Money, that guy. He kind of summarizes his life and his adventures that he goes through in this book. It's a quick read, and the font in this book is quite big, so it made it way easier than it should have been to read. I don't know if you guys are gonna see this, but the font here is huge, and it's only about 100 pages in. Just above 100 pages. And what I learned from this was how he pretty much approaches life and life's challenges, that he seeks out. He seeks out adventure, and what his whole message was: just do it. If you have anything you want to, if you want to, anything in life that you want to do, just do it. And the book is literally called "Screw It, Let's Do It." Which is very cool. Seems like a cool guy. Then here is Ngugi wa Thiongo, one of my favorites as well. It's somewhat of a struggle book, revolutionary book, militant. This guy is one of the best authors we have here on the African continent, and probably the world has to offer as well. And he wrote this as, I don't want to call it a guide, but somewhat of a guiding force towards recognizing the elements of colonization and how we can reverse the effects in our minds. because that's where it all lives. It's a great book, and it'll develop somewhat of a better understanding of why we act the way we do in certain circumstances as people who have been colonized, and you get to somewhat understand. And this is a book I read 2018. Yeah, that was last year, for one of my courses in varsity, and this book is good if you're into that type of stuff. But even if you're not, actually, I definitely recommend this book here. And right now, this is the book that's keeping me busy, keeping me up. Well, not really, but I haven't been able to give myself some time to read, but this book has been keeping me busy. See how thick this thing is. This is Credo Mutwa, and it's called Indaba, My Children. It's basically just a collection of African tales, African folklore, just some of the stories that you'd hear in the village, or your grandparents would tell you. My grandparents aren't really that big on this type of stuff, but they did tell some stories, and you'd read some of these stories, but this is a more I don't know how to describe, because I'm not that deep into the book yet, but I just picked it up like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, but it's a very imaginative book, and the way it's written is very very good. He's an African shaman, Zulu shaman, who is very, very educated, and sticks with what he believes. And I'm hoping to gain a lot more than what is on the surface of the book, because the stories that were told weren't just stories. They were used as a medium to grow the mind, and also leave somewhat of a breadcrumbs in a way for the generations coming. So yeah, like, hopefully I get to go through the whole thing. It's quite big, dense, but hopefully I get to go through it. Then this is one book of many in the series, and there's many more of these, but so far I've just read this one by Plato. It's not that big. It's like a very easy read in terms of the amount of pages, but the content is dense like crazy, and it kind of puts a bit of perspective on how Socrates would think and how he faced adversity. And the one thing I learned from this was how to overcome that fear of death. He asked, how can we be afraid of something that we don't know, yet life is something that we do know? And that's what he said. He's like, I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid of this existence here. Like, you can't threaten me with death. And that's another thing Tupac said as well, is like, you can't kill him. The only thing that can kill him is death itself. And it's a really dope book. It was written by Plato. You need to just remember that it was written by Plato about Socrates going through a trial in like a court hearing. But very, very interesting, very good book. Then this one, somebody just returned this book to me. I borrowed it to someone, and they just returned it. Thank you for returning it. Not a lot of people actually return books these days, but yeah, I got it back, and I'm looking to start reading it. This one here is my mother's book, and it's by Angelou, and titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it's a collection of poetry. And actually, let me not go that deep into it, because I don't know what it's about. I didn't want to research what it was about or anything like that, because I don't want to ruin the experience for myself. So yeah, that's the book I'm going to be reading next after Credo Mutwa. And then this one right here, Tutankhamun Prophecies, and it was written by Maurice Cotterell. I haven't read it. I'm looking to read it. because I'm really fascinated by Egyptian mythology, ancient Egyptian history as well, you know. So Tutankhamun was one of like a very young pharaoh, and you know he's one of the more well-known or well-documented pharaohs in the dynasties. And you know I want to see what this book is about. Okay, like I haven't actually even opened it till now, but yeah, they got some pictures in here. You know how you used to get so excited as a kid. It's like, oh, there's pictures in here, it makes it 10 times easier. But you know, nowadays you sort of prefer a book without. But you know, I like this, and I like the fact that you know they did include this element of it. I'm really looking forward to reading this. And yeah, and that is it for the books that I've read and I want to read. But there is a book that's not here that I need to mention. It's an honorable mention. One of my favorite books, probably my favorite book, 1984 by George Orwell. And I'm sure most of you guys have either heard of it or read it. And if you have read it, tell me what you thought. Really interested in knowing some of people's thoughts on, you know, how George Orwell is so articulate and, you know, like meticulous about how he uses allegory to, you know, project a certain story, or like he did with Animal Farm as well. And how he uses political satire in all of his stuff. You know, I really enjoyed that book. I picked it up back in 2016, and it only took me like a week to finish it. That's how interested in the book I was, you know. And yeah, so should I edit that in later? Yeah, I'll put it when I'm gonna edit it, and then I'll put it here, right there. 1984 by George Orwell. So yeah, that's the books so far. And then you guys can let me know what books you're reading, and any books you'd suggest to me. Let me know, hit me up in the comment section. And thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 5 of Free Rants, Bands and Humans podcast. Peace.